Throughout cinematic history, vampires and werewolves have frequently crossed paths on the silver screen in a battle for dominance. Today, we've handpicked a werewolf and vampire film, pitting them against each other in an epic double feature showdown. Join us as we delve into these mesmerizing creature features to determine which genre reigns supreme. Welcome to this episode of Cursed Beings.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Voices from the Mausoleum, and welcome to an episode of Cursed Beings, Double Feature Showdown.
Hi, everyone. I'm Albert. I just decided I was just going to start talking and, say the obvious. So, yeah.
I'm going to use that clip to promote the episode. I just want you to know.
Beautiful. I like
You're just like,
I love it. I was like, is it my turn? So, yeah.
Oh, no. If you're not familiar with our series, there's a playlist. You should check out the other two episodes we've done so far. But it is a series that Albert and I are doing where one of us picks a werewolf movie, one of us picks a vampire movie, and we put them head to head and we discuss which one out of those two reigns supreme. Albert made this cool little thing for us. So these are kind of just some talking points we're going to hit as we're going through the movies. But it feels like it was just last week. But last episode, I picked the werewolf movie. And so this time it was your turn to pick the werewolf movie.
Yes.
So what'd you pick for us to watch or revisit rather?
So this week I picked Howl. It's a 2015 horror/action film running 1 hour and 29 minutes and directed by Paul Hyatt. So I thought that this was a super interesting idea for a werewolf film. And it stars Ed Spielers as Joe, Holly Weston as Ellen, and Sean Pertwee as the driver of the said train.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what did you think about this film?
So I actually just watched this for the first time. Same with Bad Moon. I watched this for the first time last October for like my October first watches because I was trying to like really amp up like watching some werewolf movies that I hadn't seen before. So this I did have to revisit it though because I did only watch it that one time and I could remember most of it, but I was like, no, I need to like revisit. This one is a little slow for me. I think that there's a lot of empty space in this film. I liked the concept of it. Trains are super claustrophobic. Like they're very, very narrow spaces. There's only so many places you could go. So I think the setting of that, for anybody who forgot from the previous episodes, we do spoilers. So we are going to deep dive into these just in case that's going to ruin the experience for anybody. I just want to say that.
Spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers. So I don't know. You know, it has the woman in it from The Descent.
You know, it has the guy in it from Dog Soldiers.
Which guy?
Sean Pertwee.
He's the character.
Pertwee. He's the driver of the train that first gets off to check on the train. And then in Dog Soldiers, he plays like, I want to say it was the captain or something.
Yeah, I can't picture him in Howl for some reason, though. Like, I'm trying to visualize. I can't remember that. That's cool. No, I didn't realize that. I know you said the name, and I was like, why does that sound so familiar? But I couldn't place a face with it. But yeah, I love Dog Soldiers. That's one of my favorite ones.
Another goodie.
Yeah.
Did you want me to give a quick little rundown of the plot?
Yeah, sure.
All right. On a stormy night, passengers on the last train out of London begin to panic after coming to a sudden halt. They soon realize there's something dangerous lurking in the forest, and it's stalking the besieged train and picking them off one by one. So I was trying to keep it kind of vague, but I mean, it's a very basic idea. There's
Yeah.
no real crazy twisty storyline.
Yeah.
And for me, it actually hit pretty well. Like I really enjoyed this film and I forgot how much I liked it. I think
Okay.
the things that kind of were off-putting to me, I guess we'll get to a little bit farther along, but
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
what did you think as far as the scare factor?
So I know I say this every episode. Typically with werewolves, I don't really consider most of them scary, but I do think that this one did a better job of creating a scare factor. So like because it takes kind of a long time to get to like actually seeing anything or anything like really crazy happening, the moments that those happen, the thing like the big things happen, it is really intense and it is a little nerve-wracking because you're like some of them are jump scares. There's like one or two instances where what the werewolves do, like when they come into play, it's like a jump scare because it's a very sudden, loud thing that happens. But otherwise, I mean, I think and I know we'll get more into this probably in a little bit later, but like I think like I have to say that I think the way these things looked was pretty unsettling too, because I don't know, like they looked more like mutated. And so that made them a little scarier to me because like, and they didn't seem to be like afraid of anything. So they were just kind of like, whatever, like they just get like 1 against 6 and it didn't even phase it, you know? So I thought that kind of added to like oh, this is like not so much just a cool wolf, but one that would actually probably scare me in real life. But not that werewolves wouldn't scare me in real life, but you know what I mean? Yeah, I don't know. I think it's probably middle ground scare wise. I don't think it's like a super terrifying movie. I think kids would probably find this pretty scary. But I think as a grown up, a little less on the scare side.
So for me, I think that because this is a very dark movie, and like you
Yeah.
said, it was claustrophobic. They're all kind of crammed into the
Yeah,
screen.
yeah.
And then there were certain scenes that reminded me of other werewolf films. The hand dragging of across the side of the train, for some reason, that reminded me. I want to say it was Silver Bullet, where the werewolf does that against the side of the house when he's
House. Yeah. Yep.
um and for some reason that was super effective to me, just seeing the hand and the
That part
arm
was creepy. Yeah.
kind of just like going along the side. It's just like, oh. And then also when they're in the forest and you can see the eyes of the
Oh
werewolf
yeah. Yeah.
and then the silhouette of them kind of like about to attack someone, I guess. They were like surrounding, and
Yeah.
they were the way that they were able to hop out of trees and they used trees to like kind of hide themselves.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool. It isn't something that I'm used to seeing in werewolf films. Like they usually don't hide up in trees, right?
No,
Um,
yeah, that's pretty unique. Yeah.
so I thought that was kind of a neat thing that they did.
Yeah.
I did think it is a little bit scarier than the second film on the list on our little thing. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, as far as the gore in this film, what would you say it was?
This is pretty gory. I feel like there's again, it takes a while to get to it, but I think the scenes where like when the woman gets she's like the woman that ends up changing later, her stuff was pretty gory. The attack in the bathroom part of the train, there was a decent amount of gore with that. Yeah, this is probably a little higher on the gore list than maybe some of the others that we've covered so far. Definitely more than probably our first werewolf movie. Um, yeah, it's pretty gory. I mean, I already don't think like content wise, because I do think the werewolves in this are pretty scary in general. Like but even on the gore level, I don't think like this would be like super good for kids to watch, or like even maybe like pre-teenage might be a little much too.
Yeah, there's some different scenes
Yeah.
in there that like make you like I was impressed with the level of gore in this, and I was never sure when we started doing this little cursed beings thing if I should be annoying with this or not,
No,
because I
you can
feel
use
like
it.
I'm always shoving this down people's throat, but I feel like it just helps, right? Because
No, it
you
does.
can
Yeah.
know. But I would say for me personally, it'd be probably bloody and a half, between bloody and savage,
Yeah, I would agree.
right? Because then
Yeah.
you kind of know where we're going. That was is this severed hand showing you well enough where that? Okay, boom, right there.
Yes.
That's where I would go. But yeah.
Yeah.
So, what did you feel about the creature design?
So I like the creature design. I think the creature design it's got some elements that are very typical for werewolves, right? But I also thought it was very unique. Like because in this, the body is mostly wolf, right? But the face is like not as much wolf as what I feel like I'm used to in like werewolf movies. Like it felt more human mutation over like just a change from, human to wolf. Like there was it was like in the middle of the two things, like it wasn't just a werewolf face and it wasn't a human face. It was like some weird hybrid of the two things. And that's actually ultimately I think what made them look so creepy. But otherwise I thought they were really neat looking. For the most part, like when you look at like the claws and the legs and the arms and stuff, that like I said, pretty typical. But the faces, I think, were what really got me like, ooh, that's weird looking. And it just like made it just a little more like, ugh.
It reminded me kind of the creatures from, is it Demon Knight, and also the from Dusk Till Dawn, kind of like the vampires when they were like in between,
In
like,
between the phase or the
yeah.
changes. Yeah.
Um
Yeah. It
and
looked they also like, and I don't know that I feel like this is necessarily as common, but I feel like they also just like all looked wet for some reason. I don't know if that's because like
yeah,
they just had like a oozy look to them, you know what I mean? And then so I think they're effective. I think they look really neat. And I think it was smart because I feel like, you don't see them like full body that much of the movie. You get that one scene in particular where you get a lot of it,
right.
but then it's like other parts, it's like you said, like you see the claws or you see the shadows or the outlines or you see them from a distance or you see the eyes. I mean, you do get to see more of them a little bit later, but like that particular scene was like a moment to shine with it. And I think it was pretty effective. I think it worked because I think that the way that they look, being that weird in between, just made them like even more eerie to me.
Yes. No, I kind of wished that Neanderthal looking werewolf, I'm guessing it was the leader of their pack, the one
Yeah,
that you
yeah,
like see the full body
the
of with
most,
the
yeah.
attacking. I kind of wish that they would have scrapped that creature look and then used one of the ones that were like out of the woods,
I did like
and
those better.
because they just had more of a, it sold it for me more, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. And that
Yeah.
one weird one looked like it was a steroid
It looked
Neanderthal type of,
mutated.
yeah,
Yeah,
it looked really strange, and it
yeah,
kind of just threw me out of it. I was like thinking about like what is going on here? Like this doesn't,
yeah.
I don't there, I mean there were some cool parts to it, like
Mhm.
after they had like, finally felt like they'd conquered him, and then he like kind of like reached, opened his mouth, and like he was still
Mhm.
alive. That was kind of a creepy ass scene.
That was creepy.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I just, for me, the other werewolves looked a lot better than that one
Yeah,
main.
I don't disagree. Yeah, I'm not an overwhelmingly big fan of this movie in general, but I think some of the stuff that they did with the creature design did work, but I think kind of like what you said, it was weird to see, but in the scope of it being like a werewolf film, yeah, the other wolves did look better. They look because they looked more like werewolves. They weren't so like in between of like what is the and they're not, it's not even like we got like some weird story as to why that one looked different either, like it was never like, oh, this one, I don't know, I can't even think of one off the top of my head, but there was never like a justification for why it looks so drastically different than
Yeah,
the other
exactly.
ones.
Well, watching the behind the scenes stuff, they said that it was because his bones had been broken and readjusted, and the musculature had to like they had a kind of a reasoning for why that one looked the way it did, but it's like it wasn't in the film.
It
So us
didn't.
viewers have no idea why this thing looks so weird and like almost yeah, exactly. It
Yeah.
just kind of throws you out of the film. For me, it's like I'm following. That happens. I'm like, what's going on here? So it's yeah, it's unfortunate. It is definitely the eyesore of this film if there had to be one.
Yeah, and I don't think that, again, they don't really show, it's not like you just get a ton of werewolf in your face the whole time. But I do think it didn't really help the situation to have it on camera so clearly for so long. Because it
Yeah.
really is like a big chunk of the action is that one scene in particular, like we're talking about. And it's very like they just hang out looking at him for a while, and it's just, I don't know, like it's, if it
He's
had been
the
something maybe else, like something other than like a werewolf movie, that might could work. But yeah.
he's the James Woods of this film.
Oh no.
So as far as the practical effects, where do you stand on the practical effects in this film?
I mean, I wasn't blown away by them. I think the wolves, a lot of the wolf design was fine. You know what I mean? Like I think the ones in the woods did look better, but I mean, I didn't walk away from this thinking about the effects. You know what I mean? Like it was very, yeah, I've seen worse, right? But I've definitely seen a lot better. So it was kind of just like meh for me.
I did like how they were full body suits, and then
Mhm.
for the most part, and then the legs were CGI. Um,
Oh, that
and
kind
then
of explains the weird. Okay.
the big werewolf that we've been talking about,
Mhm.
his face, there were parts of it that were CGI.
That were, yeah, you could tell.
Yeah. So, but again, like the other werewolves, their full body costumes, I thought they looked pretty good.
Yeah.
I kind of wish they would have again continued with that. As far as the storyline, I thought, it was really great. It was simple, but it worked. I mean, it's a basic thing, and with werewolf films, I think that that's the best route to go for the most part. Like when they try to branch
Yeah.
out and make this twist towards the end, it kind of always throws me. What's your opinion of the story?
Yeah, I think this story is simple enough. I do think like I'm sure it's meant to add like this is this reoccurring thing, right? But when the older guy talks about how basically that this has happened before, that this happened with another train and no one ever knew what happened to those people, and he's essentially asserting that it's that this is what happened to the other people. And I kind of felt like that was more like kind of not a lot of effort went into that because it was more just like it was kind of just mentioned in passing, and they were like, "Oh, okay," and then like moved on from it. But it would have been neat if there had been some major tie-in between like the train company and like feeding the wolves. I could have been so down for storylines like that.
Oh, okay.
Like if somebody had accidentally ended up on that train that wasn't supposed to be there and knew that that's what happens, X day of this year or whatever, I think that would have been cooler than just being like, oh yeah, this has happened before. It just felt very, it
We
just
look
poorly like executed. Like
we
it's there, but does it really need to be there? Not really, because it didn't really change anything.
Yeah, like that many people would die, but yet nobody looked into it, and we just kind of let it go. No
Like,
biggie.
no, it's fine. And we're still just going to run trains through here. No
Yeah,
problem. Like, yeah.
we're not going to try to figure anything out about that.
No, who has
That's
time? Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So the acting, I don't know. What did you think? What was your opinion of the acting in this film?
I think for the most part, people were pretty believable. There's like a couple characters. The female, they're not called stewardess on trains. I don't know what they're called. The female that works for the train company though.
Yes.
I didn't think I thought she was okay, but I didn't think she was super strong. That like younger teenagery, young adult character, I didn't really think was that strong either. I think the asshole was very believable. I
Yeah.
thought the old couple was also very believable. Our main character, the other guy that helps him, and the woman that plays what's her name in The Descent, I think they all did really good. And whoever was, I know it's not quite the same thing, but whoever was wearing the suits and who was the other werewolves, I thought they did a pretty good job as far as movements and appearances and stuff. So, I mean, there's some, I think acting wise, a lot of it was really believable. What did you think?
It was good. It felt like a B movie, but
It
I
did
was
feel
able
like a
to
B movie.
but I was able to overlook it, and I was able to really, for me, I enjoy it. Um, what did you think about the nerd with the axe that was like
Oh
went
yeah.
crazy on the werewolf?
Yeah, and then he like apologizes for it later. He's like, I don't know what happened. It's like your instincts kicked in. That's what happened.
It just
Um,
it reminded me of that scene from Office Space where they're beating up
the
the
printer.
printer in the field. Like I don't know why that's immediately where my brain went. Like, oh my god, dude, here we go.
Oh,
So I thought that
no.
was
They
funny.
should
It
have
made
done
me
it in
laugh,
slow motion.
right?
Yeah, I think this is like a thing that they do in other horror movies too, where like somebody who like isn't doing anything or isn't what is like our non-brave character, like all of a sudden just goes ham on something, right? I don't know. I mean, I guess it's fine. I mean, I think everybody's different in times of crisis, and sometimes the people you think are going to be one way end up being a total different. So I guess like, I think it was like, I do think it was meant to add something to the character. And I don't know if it did that because I still didn't even think about him very much after that. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of like an overdone concept to just have somebody just like go crazy. The only exception to that in recent viewing where somebody just like really just let loose like that after going through a lot is Ellie from The Last of Us. And that was like perfect. That worked out really well. But him doing it felt weird to me. I don't know. It was I don't know. I don't think it mattered to me that he did that. I was just kind of like, oh, okay, we're doing that. And then we moved on.
I still need to watch that show.
So good.
Um, for me,
Mhm.
I guess we're moving on to like a scene that we liked
Sure.
out of the film. Do you have one that you like was stood out to you or that you felt was memorable?
The ending.
The ending.
Like, I know it's not even like a werewolf part, really, but I like when she shows back up at the terminal and she's like covered in blood and she just like is on autopilot.
Oh
She just
yeah.
like walks up and hands him the keys, like, here you
I'm
go.
done. Goodbye. This is my last day. I'm done.
I just really liked that part. A second to that would probably be I don't know. I really did like some of the shots of the wolves in the woods. Probably when that one lady falls off or is pushed off, she's pushed off. The lady that's pushed off and then we see like when we see them start to come forward and stuff. I thought that looked really cool. But otherwise, I just really liked the way that scene was shot where she like walks up and she's just covered and I mean a mess. Like cuz their shirts are like white up here and stuff. She's covered in blood and she's just like I just thought I really liked that. I thought that was funny.
For me, it would be the girl getting eaten, and she's like up in a tree, and the werewolf has her up there.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
guess he's eating her. She's calling for help, and then
That's right.
someone goes out to look for her, and then when they get out there, the other werewolves start jumping down out of the trees,
Yeah,
and
that was pretty good.
just them in the dark surrounding the person. Also, when the older woman is transforming,
Oh, that was
and
a good
her teeth and eyes. Again, I don't know what it is about the teeth and the eyes, and just that right there being
Mhm.
enough to be like the beginnings of like a creepy ass like beginning stages of a transformation are always great in these films.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think that that part was good, and I liked the whole, like, dynamic of, like, having somebody and should you do this or should you do that, and then she ends up turning and ends up being, like, this huge deal. Yeah, that was really good. I liked the in between too, that part where she, like, turns her head and her eyes are glowing a little bit. I was like, "Ooh." Yeah, that was good.
Loved it.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Well, that's all I got for that one. You ready to introduce your pick?
I think so. Yeah. So I was excited when you sent me this one because it's werewolves on a train. And I was like, oh my God, I literally know the most perfect movie for this because there is a vampire on an airplane movie called Blood Red Sky. It came out in 2021. It's written and directed by Peter Thorworth. A woman with a mysterious illness is forced into action when a group of terrorists attempt to hijack a transatlantic overnight flight. I watched this. Gosh, I watched it when it first came out. I think it's a Netflix original, so it's on Netflix if you don't watch it. But it was a Netflix original, and it was very like it seemed cool. I was like, okay, vampires, like it's hard to find modern vampire movies that are really good anymore. Like a lot of them are just really silly or too much. And so I was like, that's kind of an interesting. We would put everything on airplanes. So I was like, okay, sure, why not? And so I remember watching it, and it's funny because even though I picked it, I thought I remembered not really liking it that much. But then on my revisit, I couldn't stop watching it. Like it had my attention the whole time. And so, the whole dynamic of like the mom she's basically has vampirism and she's on her way to get a cure. And in the meantime, she has these like injections she's supposed to do that like help her keep control. But then you have this really emotional element, at least for me, where like she has her son with her and she's trying to protect him and keep him safe. And then you add this like action element with these hijackers. And one of the hijackers is the guy that plays the brother in Prison Break, giant. Yeah. And what's funny is I think it's also the same guy that played it's not really, is he called Dracula in Blade? The like first vampire in Blade. I think it's the same guy. But anyway, and so that was funny. He was like in 2 vampire movies. But yeah, no, I was glad that I rewatched it because I think I would have said I didn't like it, but I did end up really liking it. It was very it's definitely over the top. There's a lot going on in this movie, but between the hijacking and the fight sequences and the vampirism, and it was a wild ride, but it was a lot of fun. Had you seen this one before?
I had seen it before.
Oh, okay.
There was things I liked about it, and there's things I didn't like about it.
Yeah,
it did feel a lot more action movie than horror movie to me, and that's one of the reasons why I was kind of like, but I did enjoy it. It is something, and it had these certain moments, which I'll get into farther along, that made it. It brought it back around to like could possibly be. This is why it's a horror film too. So
sure. Yeah, I think I know some of the moments you're talking about. Yeah, because it does this weird, like we've got our present day storyline, but then we slowly start to get clips of her from the past and then like trying to piece together her background of like what happened to her and how she ended up here and all these things. And those parts were the parts that had the element of horror versus the airplane was a lot of gore and a lot of action.
Yes, and I guess one of the other, I don't know, I'm not trying to just be negative, but one of the other negatives for me was like it almost felt like towards the end it became almost like a zombie film where everybody started biting everybody and everybody started changing.
Yeah.
And it was so quick and fast paced, and you're like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah, because we're used to people being like changed into vampires, it being like a process.
Yeah, there's a transitional phase, right, that they have to go through, and they don't just, it's not so immediate. And that's how I feel about werewolves too, right? Whenever there's werewolves in a film and it's like they get bit and then it's immediate, if it's too soon, I'm like, this is bullshit. Like,
yeah,
I'm programmed, right, to know that like it takes a certain amount of time.
It does. Like, usually not for another full moon, right? Usually,
something, but like the fact,
not 5 seconds.
Exactly, just the same thing with the vampires for me. It's just like I need there to be some stuff that happens before they're just there.
Yeah, And
So
I think they were going with a virus approach, which I think is fine. I don't have an issue with the concept of being a vampire being a virus, but I think when you go virus, you do have to kind of toe the line of vampire versus zombie, and you really do have to be careful of that because, to your point, it just felt like they were fighting a horde of zombies by the end. Like it really, the ending was probably one of my biggest complaints about it because I think otherwise it had a lot of potential to wrap up a much better way than it did. But yeah, it just became too overwhelming. Like the scene in particular where you're like looking down at the plane or looking down inside the plane and they're just like coming. It's like, yeah, it totally gave off zombie vibes. I totally agree with that. Yeah.
what? So as far as being scary, how'd you feel about this one?
I think the scare factor for me is probably more in some of the tight spaces or like emotional scare versus like boo scare. If I don't know if that makes sense. Like I felt like before I'd like when I remember watching it for the very first time and I didn't know what exactly was going on, I was really worried about that little boy, like really worried
Yeah.
about him. I have one of those, like was very worried about it. And then this time around, I feel like the close quarters, the buildup of like when she goes into the bottom and there's like dogs down there and like some of that. But I guess that's really not so much scary as just like you know it's coming and it's really uncomfortable. It's kind of different, I guess. So I think that Howl was probably scarier than this. Because again, it's very actiony, a lot of bright lights, a lot of noise, a lot of, and so that kind of made it, I think, less scary.
Agreed. As far
Yeah.
as how the gore would be on this one, where would you score this?
I would probably bump this up to maybe just savage. I feel like there's a lot of gore. Do you think it's grisly?
I put down bloody.
Did you? Am I just
So,
remembering it wrong? I felt like
because
there was
yeah,
a lot of gore. That one guy, the crazy blonde guy that just like starts just like stabbing people and acting crazy. I felt like there was a lot of blood in this one.
see, I felt like Howl was a little bit more bloody than this. There's a little bit more
Ah,
gore because I want to say
okay. Hmm.
now you're gonna make me want to go rewatch it. I'm almost 100% sure though, that it was just like there was just a lot more rippage and throwing it around like it was nobody's business.
And maybe my thought process is getting to that because you get gore more often on the airplane than you do the train, and maybe that's why I'm feeling like it was worse. But I guess more doesn't necessarily mean worse, right? So yeah, because you're right. It's more animalistic horror in Howl, and in this, it's just people shooting people and stabbing people, and it's different. But I feel like we got gore more often in was it? I was Blood Red Sky. I cannot remember the title of this movie to save my life. I always
What
type in vampire airplane movie because I can never remember the name of it, even though it's super obvious named. But anyway, I don't
what
know.
I try to say to people, or if you've seen movies like the Evil Dead remake, or if you've seen The Sadness, those two
Oof.
movies are like up here, Slaughterhouse, correct?
100%, yeah.
So then that's basically what would be your top like
Then
gore.
you're in that, yeah, in that sense, you're right. Then this would have been bloody. This wouldn't have been that close to that. You
Like
just get it more often, but it's not necessarily like more or worse. It's
they
just
don't yeah, they take their time with it and they almost show you it more happening, like ripping apart of things
yeah,
and it
yeah.
actually like going through instead of just there's a puddle of blood, there's a splash of
Sure, sure. No, you're right. Yeah, yeah. I'll go with bloody then. Yeah.
as far as the creature design, how'd you feel about that? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Disappointment.
I think so. Okay, so when we talked about the James Woods movie, John Carpenter's Vampires, we talked about how basic that design was for vampire.
But it
But
worked.
there were things about it that worked, right? Like there were things about it that worked. This is so basic. Like this was like we really don't get the better stuff of like what she really looks like as she kind of succumbs to this until a little bit later when she's not wearing the wig and like, but like bald vampires like only work when they're Nosferatu. Like for me, I think that that's just a like an easy out for a design is just to not have someone have hair. Like I don't know. And then I think the teeth were fine. The eyes were pretty normal, you know, vampire stuff, but it felt really, really basic to me. I didn't walk away thinking about the creature design. I walked away thinking about how sad I was about this mom and son. You know, like that it didn't have a very big impact on me overall.
That's kind of what I had written down a little bit. I put
Yeah.
Nosferatu with bat ears because at one point they show the ear kind of like turning to like hear sounds and stuff,
Here.
like it's got
That's
some
true.
weird
Yeah.
sonar BS. But yeah, I kind of like the look of the vampires when they started changing as well. And then
Mhm.
the other guy that ends up being one of like the main villains, he's pretty creepy as a vampire, especially
Mhm.
covered in blood coming at them, right?
Yeah.
But I guess he is also partially burned. Uh, but yeah,
That's
the
true.
practical effects, how'd you feel about those versus the CGI?
Um, I don't think I even realized any of it was practical. I mean, I guess like the basic stuff, right? Like contact lenses, teeth, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
And any type of like person getting like wounded or stabbed or shot or like,
so yeah, I think some of the violence I thought looked pretty good as far as like believability. I mean, like that one scene I was just saying where like that guy, the pretend stewardess is like stabbing that guy like 100 times because he's nuts. Um, I thought like that looked very real. And I felt like oh my God, like I felt overwhelmed by watching him do that so many times. And other than that, I mean, I'm trying to think of other things that might have just been like, oh, I really loved that, or not really. Um, no, I do think that the scenes where they actually kill people, I thought those looked pretty believable. And even though I'm with you on like the zombie attack stuff where it's like the end and they're all just like crumbing. Some of that did look pretty good when it did actually show you them jumping on a person that hadn't been changed yet or whatever. I thought that looked pretty good, but again, it just not super like overwhelmingly great. I just, you know, I wasn't like blown away with it or anything.
um, did you love the idea of the storyline? Like,
Hmm.
again, this one, it seemed a little bit more of a story than our last film. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I did. I loved that there was this history there of like she had this like really loving partner and they had a baby and then the partner got ate up and then she got changed and she had to deal with it while being like that scene when she screams at the baby. I was like that broke my heart. Like and I'm a parent, so like that stuff just hits so different for me. Not that it can't affect people who aren't parents, but it just for me it's like I took that shit personally. I was like, don't you talk to that baby like that. You know, like it just hits different because I would never scream at my child, never in a million years. And so anyway, so that part like broke my heart. And just kind of getting to see her journey of like she's trying so hard to just fix it. You know, she didn't ask for this. She wasn't even being reckless or stupid or it was just a wrong place at the wrong time, you know, and it ended and I liked this concept of I'm always intrigued by things that involve like curing vampirism. Like Daybreakers is like one of my favorite vampire movies. And it's like I love the concept of it's a virus, like how do we fix it, right? And then she's got the starter, she's gonna go see. And it's like this hopeful feeling of like we just gotta get there, right? But then all this shit happens on the plane and they can't. And meanwhile, you know, and then thinking about her son seeing her gunned down, he has no idea that she's a vampire or that she can survive that. And so, like, all of that, I thought all of that really made it a surprisingly emotional experience, given that it's about vampires on an airplane. I don't know that I would have thought that given the title and the definitely not the poster because the poster looks very hokey. No, I actually did really like the story for this. Even though I don't like some of the choices with the endings, I did like that that one guy ends up like helping the little boy at the very end. And I thought that was cool. And then when they blow it up, I thought that was wild. But otherwise, the main story I thought was really, really good. I liked it. I liked that it attempted to have some depth.
Yes. No, I'd agree with that. I feel like it had me until like probably the last quarter of the film, it kind of just went like, it
Yeah.
went a little too wild for me, right? Like, I
Yeah.
really would have liked it kind of kept within a certain thing, and her just meticulously hunted these motherfuckers down and been more of a creepy film. Like they're searching for her through this plane, and
And they
she's
can't
just
find
like
her.
popping out of different areas and like
No, I agree. That would have been
doing
good.
right. Kind of like a what is that film that they just had where the vampires on the ship?
Oh, the Demeter.
Yeah, like that, but on a plane, right? That would have been kind of neat.
Yeah.
So as far as the acting, how'd you feel about that? Again, disappointment. Okay.
No, I think the acting was fine. I think the little boy did a good job. I think that big giant guy that's been in the other stuff, I thought he was fine. The crazy guy was definitely the most convincing actor though. Like he had me believing like he's a psychopath. Like I thought he did that so great. The guy that's like the friend of the kid that kind of, is like the our other main character, I guess. I thought he was fine. Some of the hijackers were not super believable, but the crazy guy I think kind of made up for that a little bit. And then I think the woman that played the mom, the vampire, I think she did a pretty good job of selling me on this like depressed, just trying to figure this shit out, like vampire to switch and then to switch from that to y'all got me fucked up. Like her switch from like this, like, she's like, let's just get there. Like everything's going to be okay. It's okay. It's okay to like, all right, fine. Let's play, like, I thought that was really good. I thought she was very convincing in both pieces of that. But yeah, I don't think everybody was a star in this. I think there were people that really brought their A game and people that just kind of fell into the shadows. I didn't even.
For me, I would agree with you there. Again, it felt like a B movie, and that's how the acting. But this movie also is dubbed, so
Yes.
trying to pick apart certain things made it a little bit more difficult. But
Yeah.
also, I did think it was kind of funny how everybody was dubbed except for the guy from Prison Break, and he's like just speaking regular because he already speaks English, right? So that was kind of funny. I was like, wait a second.
It was weird the first time I watched it and it went from subtitles to not. I was confused. I was like, why is it okay?
Yeah.
But then it went back and forth the whole time. So I guess yeah, it's because it's dubbed. So
So out of 10, what would you give this film? Uh-oh. You've made a lot more squinty faces at this movie than you did at Howl. So I'm already
which is
assuming.
crazy because I feel like I liked this one more than Howl. Werewolves are just like it's so hard.
Oh, I 100% agree with that.
It's so hard to not just love werewolves because they're werewolves.
Werewolves.
That's all you need to know.
In the woods, ripping stuff apart. They're
Yeah, like
animals. I mean,
check
how
and
can you
check.
be
Like
mad at that?
yeah. So okay, if I'm thinking about this lot, okay, so like if I had to rate this, it's going to primarily get a high. The only reason it's going to get this high of a rating is strictly because of the story and the dynamic between the mother and son, because I think that is one of the strongest points of the film. I also think that Psycho did a great job of being like making me feel like I would be terrified if I was on a plane with that guy and my son was there. Like that would make me like, so if I have to give this something out of 10, I would probably give it like a 6.
Okay. That's funny. That's exactly what I have.
Is it? Little
And
better than mediocre.
right. And it's funny because we kind of skipped over this, or I did with the last film, Howl, which I would have given either a 6.5 or a 7. And it just barely beats this one out because I probably would rewatch Howl as where this one,
Yeah.
I felt like it went too all over the place and became a little bit too actiony as opposed to scary horror. And I have plenty of zombie movies that I can watch to fill that type
Sure.
of void. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, If I had to give Howl a rating, though, I'd probably give it like a 5.
Okay.
So, because I would not rewatch Howl, but I probably like if I had to pick one of the two that I would be more likely to rewatch, I'm not going to rewatch either of them. But if I had to pick one that I would be more likely to rewatch, it would
Yeah.
probably be Blood Red Sky, mostly because there's just so much going on that I could just kind of tune in and out. Whereas Howl, it's like it took forever for stuff to finally happen in that one. So I would give that a point lower. I would give Howl a point lower than Blood Red Sky.
One of the scenes that I did really like in Blood Red Sky
Yeah.
was where they show how she gets turned down in the
Mhm.
basement of that
Yeah.
dilapidated house when she goes looking for her husband, right?
Yeah. I
And
see.
then
Yeah.
and then yeah, that whole scene was like creepy. It was like that's how I want the whole film to be. That short little segment, I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. I'm
It was
freaked
really
out.
good.
Like I'm tripping just based off of this little, but like that's how I would like the whole thing to like going through these dilapidated, broken down castle or home or cave
Sure.
or whatever it is, right? That for some reason always gives me the best. Uh,
Yeah. I think that's probably my favorite segment in this as well because I thought that was really scary. And I think the added element is she's got a baby on her chest and we don't know like yeah,
yeah.
she's like when she runs down, she closes the door and then she like latches it and then it's like the only thing that saves her is like the light. I'm like, "Oh my god." Like that whole scene was very intense and it really did keep you kind of like, okay, like and it's funny cuz like you ever watch stuff like this where you're like she's a vampire. So you already know like but in the moment you kind of like forget. So then you're just like wrapped up in the moment of like, okay, maybe she'll get out okay. And then like you're like, "Oh shit, that's right. We're already a vampire in the present day." But yeah, I did think that part was that's probably my favorite too, because that definitely was the most horror-esque of the whole thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes,
All
I
right.
agree.
So this is going to be tough then because we're kind of on the fence where you would watch Blood
Yeah.
Red Sky again. I'm more leaning towards Howl as far as it with its for me, Howl wins it over with its gore, with its creature design, even though there's that one in particular that kind of stands out as like, not really. It kind of takes me out of it. The
Oh,
rest of them kind of like made up for it. And yeah, I just feel like overall it's a creepier, it's got more going on as far as horror. It feels more like a horror movie to me. And it's just a darker, creepier setting. I mean, being in the woods at night, feeling like you're secluded and there's no way for you to get back to where you need to get to because you're surrounded, and not knowing where it's coming from. I
yeah.
For me that one wins out for that reason. Um, so, but you're gonna go with Blood Red Sky and just maybe some final thoughts on.
Well, so I'm kind of back to like how I was the first episode where we were like, okay, so like who is it, right? Like which one? And the reality is the show is about the monsters. The show is about the creatures.
Sure.
And I think if I remove the element of the story and I focus on the creatures, the wolves are done better than the vampires. The vampires are very simple. They are zombie in nature at times. So I think, I mean, when it comes to the tie side of it, I think that, or the closeness of it, I think the closeness goes away if I focus on just the creatures, just the cursed beings, right? So I think in that regard, I mean, the wolves were done better than the vampires. The vampires were confusing concept wise and really, really overly simple. And they're supposed to be or she is supposed to be, the focal point of the whole thing.
Yeah. Okay.
So I mean, yeah, I mean, I think in that sense, it's as much as I liked it as a movie, I don't think as a monster movie, it has a lot of merit because it is definitely more action, not very much horror, and it's very story driven and less monster chaos. Whereas, Howl is does check those boxes. So
I do feel though that
mhm.
we should rate these off of which film we think is the better horror movie, just from going here into the future. That way there's no like real confusion, because I do think that that should be what plays a little bit of a factor into our decision making as well.
Yeah, I mean, and I think as far as what is more horror, I mean, that's probably obviously Howl too, right? Because of the atmosphere, and it's super dark, and there's a lot of the small shots like the nails on the train and the eyes and the wood and the eating the body in the trees. So I mean, I think on the horror side of it, that's also Howl, because this other one, as we've said, is a lot more action based. It's like an action vampire movie instead of like it's like a super solid horror film.
I was bummed because I wasn't able to find very many facts about Blood Red Sky either, so that kind of bummed me out. I got two of them. So if you
Okay.
want those at any point in time, I mean, I can do that, or we could just skip that part altogether. I wasn't sure,
No,
but
I mean, I'm curious to hear them. I'm not surprised it was harder for you to find stuff though, just given that it is technically like it's a foreign film, right? So it's not
yeah.
yeah. So
Netflix reported that the film was watched by 50 million members over its first 4 weeks of release, making it the most successful German original title to date. That was one of the facts. The other fact was the plane that was used in the film was an Airbus A340, which means zero to me, but it's okay. And then the interior of the aircraft is a set in a tram shed in Prague,
oh, that's interesting.
right? And then the set that they did on Howl was actually 3 train lengths long, and that was what was difficult for them during filming, was
Hmm.
to try to find a set that was that long
Yeah.
to film in. But then when watching the behind the scenes and seeing how they actually had the wood set up along this makeup train, and they had sections of the train that they could pull out, it just, I love watching the behind the scenes. I'm sorry. But like, so yeah, watching that and watching the makeup and watching how they designed it, it just made me have a whole new appreciation for the film.
Yeah, and you watch it on physical media and I don't. I watch it on streaming. So I don't usually get to see any of that stuff. The behind the scenes stuff, that is. So, yeah.
All right. So okay, well, like, so who wins out here? Or are we calling it a tie? Because I'm okay with tying it up too, if we need to.
No, I mean, I think you're right. I think if we're focusing on, the point of the show and like what we're focusing on or what we're trying to focus on, I mean, I
We're
think
trying to give our watchers the best horror film experience based off of werewolves or vampires. That's what we're
we,
doing here, guys.
we haven't even gotten to the good ones yet.
Right? We're trying, yeah, and exactly. That's how I feel too. I'm like, I'm trying to start off on ones that are like
Yeah,
play,
yeah.
like, are right on the line of like, these are kind of good, kind of bad, kind of like right
Yeah,
there,
and
like
then we'll
where they
get
could.
to the like big hitters much later.
Because I was actually really impressed with how the second time around watching it, and I was kind of surprised that the only thing for me that was really a negative was that big, weird looking, steroided out looking Neanderthal werewolf thing. If that would have been like just
Yeah.
looked different, I could have been a whole different thing for me personally.
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, I think yeah, I think it's hard. Well, you know what? I think eventually we're going to cover ones that we are going to have the opposite of an issue where it's going to be like they're both so good. How do you decide? But right now, when I feel like both of them are just kind of meh, it's like. But no, I mean, creature wise and horror wise, I definitely would say Howl wins in those categories because I mean, really, the only reason I liked a win for Albert. The only reason I liked Blood Red Sky more was because of the story, but that's not really the point, of the show. So it's yeah, in that regards, I guess, yeah, Howell takes the win this time.
Okay, all right. Um, Well,
Yeah.
damn. Where does that leave us as far as werewolves to vampires so far during these episodes? Are we
So
werewolf?
vampires won the first, and then werewolves won the last one and this one. So 2-1.
Oh shit. Okay. Werewolves are up. Nice.
I'm surprised we even made a vampire a winner just because we both are such werewolf fans. But I think again, it's being able to separate that and being like, okay, like for real, is it? But I think, but yeah. So vampires won the first one, werewolves won the last one, and they won this one.
There's some vampire movies that I'm like, I really like, and they really give me some vibes of like fuck, like some creepy ass vibes. So for me, yeah, I know that we're gonna get to a point where they're like really,
yeah,
yeah,
it's inevitably going to happen. So next time I get to pick the werewolf movie, I'll have to think about which one I want to do.
I have a vampire film picked in mind already too. So
okay.
But I'm gonna base it off of your choice. So I'm gonna, depending on that.
Yeah.
But the next time.
Okay. Well,
Cool.
I think that's gonna wrap up this episode of Cursed Beings. Werewolves won this one, so 2-1. And Albert, this was your first win, I think, right? I think I've won the first 2.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so too. If you want our cool logo on anything, there's a link in the description so you can get your own. So you can, match us.
Yes. Cursed Beings.
And as always, Albert's links where you can find him will be in the description for this episode. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with us on this episode of Cursed Beings. We hope you have a good rest of your week. Enjoy your weekend, and we will see you in the next one.
Have a good night, everyone.